Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, and today we're going to be talking about my amateur investing. We're going to be going into the 13th episode of the series today, where I look at crypto and my stocks, mainly looking at dividend stocks and growth crypto. But I do have a little bit of growth stocks and a little bit of passive income generating cryptocurrency as well. So we will dive into all of that great stuff. And I'm really just kind of showing you my financial journey and what I've been doing. None of this is financial advice. And for tax purposes and other things, I do have to say that the crypto that you see may or may not be simulated or my alleged actual earnings, but all the stock related stuff is 100% legitimate. That being said, just before we dive in, a quick word from my sponsor. A big thank you and shout out to my sponsor, Cake Wallet, which is an open source, non-custodial Bitcoin and Monero wallet that also has a built-in exchange. It's available on iOS and Android. All right, thank you so much to my sponsor. Now let's jump right in. So first, I usually start off by taking a look at how much dividends I earned in the past month. And March was a fantastic month. It was a record-setting month for dividend earnings, $99.90, just under 100. As you can see here, this is the graph that's actually tracking this of what I'm generally getting on average and what's projected, these blue bars here, and then the actual line is following what I'm actually getting. You can see that there's dips every now and then. That's more so just because certain stocks will pay monthly and others may pay quarterly. So there'll be jumps every now and then, as well as, just certain stocks pay at certain times. So generally trending up though, which is fantastic because I'm continuing to grow this account. And I've restructured it a lot. I've focused a lot more on a few core sectors. We will dive into all the nitty gritty of that. But I'm very happy that the dividends are growing, and I want to end this year at least at $125 a month on average, but more so aiming for about $150. I would like to be able to pay the majority of my share of the utilities as well as my cell phone bill. So covering my internet, cell phone, gas, water, and electricity. And if I can do that all with passive income, then that is substantial. And again, the whole point is here to work up to different milestones to cover expenses in your life passively for the rest of your life. Obviously, expenses will change over time, probably go up with inflation, but naturally so should your stocks, and you should see appreciation in there, and then you should get more dividends anyways. So hopefully, as long as you're making the right buys and doing the right things, you shouldn't have any issues there. Though soon I will be doing a video talking about how with what we're actually seeing for inflation versus what people are getting in stocks and the stock market and other assets they invest in, you actually have to get a way higher return than you thought you were getting. I believe they say to aim for about 5% or more, whereas it's really more like 15 or higher. I will do a whole breakdown on this. It's really just because inflation is much worse than people actually believe. We just haven't seen the effects of this yet. So crypto investing is kind of important, because if you're not actually able to beat inflation in the stock market for the most part, or even just trading with a bank or anything, and they're guaranteeing you 7% a year, that's still only half, and you're still ending up in the negative. So that's very important. We will talk about that in the future. But for now, it is still great to be able to achieve this and build this up. For my crypto income, this is looking at how much did I earn from my passive earnings. So I got $14.51. This is just from Hive and Den Social using MTR, but I am powering down on Hive. So for the most part, Hive is not really doing a lot. And I mean, I'm powering down. So that's generally getting smaller and smaller and kind of going away. I don't think I'll power down entirely, but I do want to get more away from passive income focused crypto and stuff during a Bitcoin bull run, at least for the next 4 to 5 months. that has been my plan. The only reason I have MTR is because it's also a growth play, because it's a very new cryptocurrency. So yeah. And then in terms of my entire portfolio, I always just clock these in at the beginning of the month. So at the beginning of March, I had 127,000. The beginning of April, I had 174,000. I am above that today. So while during this month I had a $30,000 drop in my portfolio, it's always important to remember that at least during a bull run, you should generally end up with more at the end of the month than you did at the beginning, even with crazy swings where I'm losing like $30,000 and then going back up. Yes, it can be very volatile, very emotional, but if you keep to the right fundamentals and you don't trade based on emotion, you can avoid all of this craziness. I'm not going to talk about Doge today. So yeah, and then you can see the graph of how that's progressing. So at 174,000, pretty solid. In terms of stock investments, and this is also just my main portfolio. We will look at everything very soon. And then for my stock portfolio, 31,000 was what I clocked in at the beginning of April. So, it's growing steadily, but I'm also, putting money into it, etc. So it's not just making all this growth on its own. I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on stocks as crypto becomes more bullish and more exponentially expensive, because at some point it won't make sense for me to be buying Bitcoin at 200,000 when I know it's going to crash. And if I miss the crash, then I'm going to end up in the negative. Not that I'm really concerned about that, because Bitcoin will go up in the long term, but I'd like to position myself better for these cycles now that I fully understand it and I have, wealth to be able to try to ride these cycles out and be more effective in my investing. So I'm going to be maxing out my my tax-free investment account in Canada, because it makes sense to, and dealing with all the taxes for everything is going to be a hassle. So it's going to be good for me to just max that out and benefit, because the reason that you want to max out your tax-free savings account in Canada is because once that's growing, whatever you get in there and whatever is in that account is tax-free. So the earlier you max it out and the earlier you invest in, like for me, dividends, those dividends are just going to keep compounding and growing and growing, and it's all going to be tax-free. So you want to do that as early as possible. Or if you're very, very certain about certain growth stocks and you want to avoid all the tax complications and just everything tax-free, you can grow it in your tax-free savings account and then again cash out whenever you want, and it's going to be tax-free. So whether you're building up your wealth slowly with dividends or you're doing it with growth stocks, it definitely makes sense to max out your contributions. However, right now during a bull run, it does make more sense to be investing in something like Bitcoin and different cryptocurrencies, because there's just so much upside in the next several months. But then I'm going to be much more focused on stocks and maxing this out and then getting back into crypto once we have that crash. So that is everything for that. This is just a quick look at my budget. I have been over budget, but I've been doing a lot of upgrades and things. I've added a lot to the studio. I upgraded my computer a bunch. So I've done a lot of things. I published more music. And none of that is cheap, but I still have my budget set for the year and I'm still within that. It just looks like I've spent a lot more because I dealt with a lot of the more expensive items in my budget earlier in the year. But I will continue tracking along with this and sharing my budget with you guys so that I'm not telling you guys to save and this is the way to do it, and then I'm secretly spending all my money. When I do spend money, like I said, it's usually for a practical business purpose. I'm upgrading my computer so that I can edit faster and I can do more. I'm upgrading the studio so that it looks more aesthetically pleasing. And it's just more what I want it to be for the look and just for the presentation with you guys. So I feel like that all makes sense in terms of like a business expense, especially because it's not extremely expensive. To actually look through my stock, all my individual stuff here, we will do that in a moment, but just to look at the total wealth breakdown. So what you saw before was my growth crypto, which is almost up $15,000 since. Actually, no, I think it was 174, so $10,000 since. And, it's always important to note my library coins. Actually, that is lower. I believe it's this amount now. I've always got to update that because it's changing so rapidly. And I have this locked LBC that I won't be able to touch until February 2022, which I assume will be after the crash. But you can see that my total wealth is exactly $250,000, which is absolutely fantastic. To be fully transparent, though, I did include some of my taxes that I owe and student debt so that I'm not, inflating what my real total wealth is. So technically, I'm not actually over 250. I was when my portfolio here said 200,000. I was well over, but it pulled back. I still think we're going to go up a little bit more by the end of the month, and I'll be over it again. When you include my taxes and stuff that I owe. Either way, though, I just wanted to be completely transparent about that. But it's a massive, massive achievement for me to be at $250,000. Mind you, it is Canadian dollars, so it's more like 200,000 US. But I fully expect this in the next 4 to 5 months to be worth more than $1 million. And then to retire with $1 million, invest it all into passive, mainly into dividends, and then retire and just focus on this. But we'll see how everything plays out, of course. And then you've got my passive income. Again, most of that is just coming from dividends, with some coming from crypto staking. This is the actual cryptocurrencies that I hold. Bitcoin being the highest, Ethereum. So you can see the weightings here. It's mainly Bitcoin and Ethereum at 45% and 41%. And then I just have a slew of other coins, some LBC on top of the lock stuff I have. Dash is amazing for, just paying for things whenever you need to. Same with Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin. So I like to have a few different easily transactable currencies, just so that when I need to buy things, I can do it very easily. For me, BNB is a speculative play right now, which has worked out amazingly because I believe I entered at like 440 Canadian, and today it is worth over 790, I think, or somewhere around there. But either way, it's nearly doubled in the past couple of weeks since I invested. So I'm very happy with BNB. And then, as I mentioned before, we've got Hive and Matter as well. And that doesn't make any sense. I will fix the weightings after this. But in terms of my breakdown for my stocks, I've sort of shifted things around. I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate because it doesn't include real estate. Clearly, I needed to do some updates before I showed you guys this. This is the updated one, though. So you can see 21% real estate, 19% banking, 14% utilities, 20% in insurance, and then 26% into general investing ETFs. I had some consumer and technology stocks before. I have since removed them. The reason being is that there's really no point in me holding 1% of my share of my stocks in Coke and 1% in Cisco, for example, just because it's so much extra work for me to keep up with, that stock and the news and everything, rather than just focusing on the main things that I want to focus on. And having a tiny little sliver of one isn't really that meaningful or necessary. So personally, that's not what I'm going to be focused on. I'm really just narrowing down my portfolio and just getting more specific in the stuff that I want to invest in. And these are the sectors that I feel the most confident in. I'm going for a very safe, conservative, low risk play, which ironically has worked out just immensely for me. I've had some bank stocks go up as high as, where's my percentage change here? 44% gain, 36% gain, 57% gain. So that is absolutely substantial. I also was just selling out of my US stocks mostly because I know I get less money from them based on the taxes that they take before you get it. And I thought to myself, unless I really want to be invested in that company, it's not that beneficial for me to be investing in it and then taking a bit of a tax hit. Plus, again, I want to aim for a 5% yield. And like Coke was only 3.33, which again is amazing. But I just felt like it made more sense for me to just adjust to what works best for my portfolio. And for me, that is keeping it, very succinct to a few sectors and very safe dividend play. So I am up $3,235 with an unrealized gain of, which is 11.86%. And that is including all the booking costs and everything else, because it is not cheap to trade here in Canada. We get charged $10 commissions on our trades through our banks, unless you go and sign up with Questrade, and then that's half, or if you go and use Wealthsimple, which is $0 commissions, but they have different caveats to make it less worth it as well. So that is that. Let's look at the actual individual purchases that I made. Because I did a lot of rebalancing in the previous month. I guess not so much during this month. This was really just selling out of my US stocks, technology, and consumer, and then just kind of upping my investment in a couple of utility stocks here, as well as insurance, because I wanted to get everything to about 20%. At least for my main ones, and then utilities around 15, and my general ETFs at about 25. That's the general aim, and it's basically there. It's just ever so slightly off on a few of them. So this is more or less exactly where I want my portfolio to be. And now going forward, I just need to invest accordingly to keeping these all generally the same. Not that it's more of a guideline than it is like a rule or a restriction. In terms of my growth investments, this is an unfortunate one for me. I made some really bad investments in crypto mining stocks. And the lesson for me is that I'm a terrible growth investor, unless I'm investing in Tesla before the index fund. But it is good for you guys to see that I don't make all the right decisions, hence being an amateur investor, and this show or series being called Amateur Investing, because that is truly what this is. I am by no means an expert, but it's here to show you the wins and the losses and how this all plays out along this financial journey, so that you guys can learn from it as well. But what I have learned time and time again is that personally, I am not good at growth stock trading, and I just took losses on these and switched it into 2 Bitcoin ETFs. Now realizing that I probably should have put it just all into Ethereum ETFs, I would have been in a way better position. But if Bitcoin still does all the things that I subscribe to believing that it will, with the stock to flow model and the halving theory cycles, or the halving cycles and the theory around that, I fully still believe that Bitcoin could go to 200,000 or maybe more in the next 4 to 5 months. And with that belief, I figured I might as well get some of those gains tax-free, as well as make up for the losses generated by investing in those crypto mining stocks, which was just a terrible idea. You're much better to just invest directly into Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs if you want to get exposure to cryptocurrency, rather than trying to pick the right mining company. which I did poorly. And maybe I just have weak hands, but I do not like growth stock trading. I feel way more confident investing in cryptocurrencies. So in this sense, I'm just investing in Bitcoin through ETFs, 2 Canadian ETFs. And Canada is very good for that, for being able to have ETFs for Ethereum and Bitcoin. So, that's fantastic. And I'm just going to have that a little bit of exposure. If it still does, 4 or 5x, then that's going to be massive for my stock account. Taking it from like 30,000 to 50,000 would be substantial. So, and that would obviously make up by far for all the losses that I took. I think it was about 2,000 or 2,500 that I lost with these, which is pretty bad. Probably the worst loss I ever realized. But with my gains on the dividend side and what I expect to see with Bitcoin, I think this won't be an issue in a few months, and I'll be very glad that I did this. Regardless, though, at the end of the day, I'm not going to be doing any more of these like growth stock speculative plays. I'm just going to put everything back into my safe dividends, which have performed so well, that I really should just be sticking to what's been working for me. And for me, it's just way too stressful to be investing in growth stocks. And just to sleep better at night, I like my dividends. I like knowing that I'm getting money passively, that if they go down in value, that's just better for me to buy more, versus when growth goes down, I'm just, basically taking losses if I ever realize that. So I just see a lot more benefit to doing dividend stock investing, and that's what I'm going to focus on much more, because again, that has been what has worked and it's done very well. It helps me sleep better at night, so I'm going to be focusing much more on that again. We already looked at this for the growth cryptocurrency. This is the breakdown. Again, very heavy into BTC and ETH. In terms of some of the changes, I sold off the majority of my library coins, about 80%, when we saw the case, shown to the public, and everyone realized that they were being sued for 11 million from the SEC, and the price started tanking. So I sold a bunch of it, and then it went way up to new all-time highs and then tanked again. It's basically where it was when it originally tanked. So, I'm not too upset that I sold, and I just don't like the uncertainty of having thousands and thousands in a cryptocurrency when there might be like a bunch of issues, or there might be more delistings, because the reason that caused the panic is because there was a delisting of LBC on Bitfinex, I believe, or Bittrex, or one of those. But any delisting of a cryptocurrency causes mass panic, especially when you're being sued by the SEC, meaning that a lot of other exchanges could have followed suit, and it was only on 3 other exchanges, so it was very risky. I still wholeheartedly support Library. I love it, but I'm lessening my investment. Plus, I still have 100,000 locked LBC, so determining how LBC plays out over the next 7 to 8 months will be how it'll kind of determine what I do with it. If I sell it, if I keep it to use for the platform, we'll see. But this has been going very well. Again, staking, I sold off about 30% or so of my Den social MTR, just because I don't want to have a lot more than $2,000-ish in something, and the price went from about 65 cents US to $1.20 US, so it basically doubled. I pulled out about 30%, so not obviously I haven't made my original investment back, but very close. And I just want to make sure I'm reasonable with where I'm putting my money. The thing that I really like about Den, though, is that it's fully liquid, unlike Hive. I don't have to power down. I can just get my money out and there's no issues. So that is, definitely important to note. And that's pretty much everything. RealT is done. I'm not doing that anymore at least until the bull run is over. Then I'm definitely going to be getting back into RealT and upping my passive income. I really want to focus on building my passive income as high as I possibly can, so that I can live off of that and have it cover my lifestyle. As I've said many times, if I do make $1 million in passive income, paying 5%, that's $50,000 a year. That is well more than enough to cover everything that I need and still have another $20,000 left over to invest. So, that's more than enough. And I think if I do get that, I will be able to retire, just focus on that, and maybe just do this full time where I just worry about creating content and I don't have anything else on my plate kind of taking up that space and that time. So this has been fantastic. If you are interested to see how much I'm earning from cryptocurrency from posting these videos on social, on about 12 platforms, I earned $5,103, I believe, last month in Canadian dollars, which is absolutely life-changing. For some people to be able to get even a couple $1,000s a month is significant, let alone 5,000. So if you want to see that video as well, go and check out that. That was the previous video that I did, or rather 2 videos ago, because there'll be an interview before that. But yeah, so let me know, how are you guys investing? How are you growing your passive income? What coins are you invested in? Are you indulging in this Doge craziness? Personally, for my hot take real quick on Doge, it doesn't present anything new or any kind of new use case. There's no applications built on it. I traded on Cryptopia, which was a Doge-based trading pair, and it got shut down, and I lost, $200-300 worth of Doge at the time, which is probably today worth thousands and thousands of dollars that was lost because I used an exchange that traded as a base pair. It left a very sour taste in my mouth about Doge, and it, again, just there's nothing built on it. There's no applications. There's not much of a use case aside from using it as another easily exchangeable currency. But personally, I'm much more into using something like Dash. And there's US merchants that are starting to adopt it. Dash Pay is very effective. Every website that I've almost ever wanted to use to pay for something accepts Dash. The rare exception, it will accept LTC or Bitcoin Cash instead, but usually not Doge instead. The only place I've ever seen to accept Doge as a payment is Bitrefill, but they cover a wide range of options. Most are not as most don't offer that wide range. So that's my quick thoughts on Doge. Let me know what you guys think on the crypto market in general. Where do you think we're going over the next few months? Are we in a bull run? Is this alt season? Is this NFT season? So many questions, so little time to cover all this. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching to the very end. If you did, comment number 1 ham in the comments below. At least on my library videos, I do try to send out a tip or 2 for people who do that and do watch to the very end, because I very much appreciate it. Anyways, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, signing off. Cheers.